Hare Krishna, I still don't hear you. You're muted.
Muted. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We're starting from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, entitled Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation, text 78. Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses. This is the 700th. And today's August 11th, 2020. It's Sri Krishna Janmashtami, the anniversary of the appearance day of Lord Sri Krishna. Janmashtami means the 8th day of the moon. I forget actually whether it's the waning moon or the waxing moon, but 8th day of the moon, and Janma means birth. Technically, Krishna isn't born.
Right now.
What's that?
The moon is going down. What is waning?
Going down. Okay, waning. Thank you. That's good. Good for me to remember these things. So it's 8th day of the waning moon. Okay. So, yeah. And then when Krishna appeared, the moon was full because the moon was really happy. So even though it was the 8th day, it wasn't Purnima, but the moon was really happy. So the moon decided to be full. It's right there in Krishna book. And so, so these things are not mechanical, it's very personal. And so technically, sometimes Prabhupada will refer to like Krishna's birthday. The word birth generally refers to like a birth that's forced by the material nature, like the birth of us conditioned souls. So that's why more technically we would say it's the appearance. So Krishna appeared on the 8th day of the waning moon. So this is the final verse of Bhagavad Gita. Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna Yatra Partha Dhanurdara Tatra Sri Vijaya Bhuti Juva Niti Mati Mama Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna Yatra Partho Dhanurdara Tatra Sri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna Yatra Partho Dhanurdara Tatra Sri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna Yatra Dhanurdara Yatra Partho Dhanurdara Tatra Sri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna
Yatra Partha Dhanurdara
Yatra Partho Dhanurdara
Tatra Shri Vijaya Bhuti
Tatra Sri Vijaya Bhuti
Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama
Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna
Yatra Partha Dhanurdara
Yatra Partho Dhanurdara
Tatra Shri Vijaya Bhuti
Tatra Sri Vijaya Bhuti
Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama
Dhruva Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Parto Dhanurdhara. Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir. Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Parto Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti.
Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir.
Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Parto Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti.
Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir.
Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Parto Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti.
Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir. Dhruvaniti Mati Mama. Would someone online like to recite the verse?
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Parto Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir.
Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir.
Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna.
Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara.
Yatra Parta Dhanurdhara.
Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir.
Tatra Shri Vijaya Bhutir.
Dhruvaniti Mati Mama.
Dhruvaniti Mati Mama. Anyone else?
Get another bonus point today.
Melanie's encouraging everyone to get as many bonus points as possible on Sri Krishna Janmashtami. Yatra,
Yatra
where?
where
Yogeshvara,
Yogeshvara,
the master of mysticism.
the master of mysticism,
Krishna,
Krishna,
Lord Krishna.
Lord Krishna,
Yatra,
Yatra
where?
where
Partha,
Partha,
the son of Prita.
son of Pita,
Dhanurdhara,
Dhanurdhara,
the carrier of the bow and arrow.
the carrier of the bow and arrow,
Tatra,
Tatra,
there.
there,
Shri,
Shri,
opulence.
opulence,
Vijaya,
Vijaya,
victory.
victory,
Bhuti,
Bhuti,
exceptional power.
exceptional power,
Dhruva,
Dhruva,
certainly.
certainly,
Niti,
Niti,
morality.
morality,
Mati mama
Mati Mama,
is my opinion.
is my
Translation. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Bhagavad Gita began with an inquiry of Dhritarashtra. He was hopeful of the victory of his sons, assisted by great warriors like Bhishma, Drona, and Karna. He was hopeful that the victory would be on his side. But after describing the scene in the battlefield, Sanjaya told the king, "You are thinking of victory, but my opinion is that where Krishna and Arjuna are present, there will be all good fortune." He directly confirmed that Dhritarashtra could not expect victory for his side. Victory was certain for the side of Arjuna because Krishna was there. Krishna's acceptance of the post of charioteer for Arjuna was an exhibition of another opulence. Krishna is full of all opulences, and renunciation is one of them. There are many instances of such renunciation, for Krishna is also the master of renunciation. The fight was actually between Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. Arjuna was fighting on behalf of his elder brother, Yudhishthira. Because Krishna and Arjuna were on the side of Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira's victory was certain. The battle was to decide who would rule the world, and Sanjaya predicted that the power would be transferred to Yudhishthira. It is also predicted here that Yudhishthira, after gaining victory in this battle, would flourish more and more because he was not only righteous and pious, but he was a strict moralist. He never spoke a lie during his life. There are many less intelligent persons who take Bhagavad Gita to be a discussion of topics between two friends in a battlefield. But such a book cannot be scripture. Some may protest that Krishna incited Arjuna to fight, which is immoral, but the reality of the situation is clearly stated. Bhagavad Gita is the supreme instruction in morality. The supreme instruction of morality is stated in the 9th chapter in the 34th verse. Manmana bhavamad bhakta. One must become a devotee of Krishna, and the essence of all religion is to surrender unto Krishna, as stated. Savadaman. The instructions of Bhagavad Gita constitute the supreme process of religion and of morality. All other processes may be purifying and may lead to this process, but the last instruction of the Gita is the last word in all morality and religion. Surrender unto Krishna. This is the verdict of the 18th chapter. From Bhagavad Gita, we can understand that to realize oneself by philosophical speculation and by meditation is one process, but to fully surrender unto Krishna is the highest perfection. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. The path of regulative principles according to the orders of social life and according to the different courses of religion may be a confidential path of knowledge in as far as the rituals of religion are confidential, but one is still involved with meditation and cultivation of knowledge. Surrender unto Krishna in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is the most confidential instruction and is the essence of the 18th chapter. Another feature of Bhagavad Gita is that the actual truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Absolute truth is realized in three features: impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Perfect knowledge of the absolute truth means perfect knowledge of Krishna. If one understands Krishna, then all the departments of knowledge are part and parcel of that understanding. Krishna is transcendental, for he is always situated in his eternal, internal potency. The living entities are manifested and are divided into two classes, eternally conditioned and eternally liberated. Such living entities are innumerable and they are considered fundamental parts of Krishna. Material energy is manifested into 24 divisions. The creation is affected by eternal time and it is created and dissolved by external energy. This manifestation of the cosmic world repeatedly becomes visible and invisible. In Bhagavad Gita, 5 principal subject matters have been discussed: the Supreme Personality of Godhead, material nature, the living entities, eternal time, and all kinds of activities. All of these are dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. All conceptions of the absolute truth, namely impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, or any other transcendental conception, exist within the category of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although superficially the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity, material nature, and time appear to be different, nothing is different from the Supreme, but the Supreme is always different from everything. Nothing is different from the Supreme, but the Supreme is always different from everything. Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is that of inconceivably one and different. This system of philosophy constitutes perfect knowledge of the absolute truth. The living entity in his original position is pure spirit. He is just like an atomic particle of the supreme spirit. The conditioned living entity, however, is the marginal energy of the Lord. He tends to be in contact with both the material energy and the spiritual energy. In other words, the living entity is situated between the two energies of the Lord, and because he belongs to the superior energy of the Lord, he has a particle of independence. By proper use of that independence, he comes under the direct order of Krishna. Thus he attains his normal condition in the pleasure-giving potency. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of its conclusions, the perfection of renunciation. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Darati Svavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Karitana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalalita Shri Vishakanditam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpate Ubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Yatra Yogesh Para Krishno Yatra Parto Danurdara Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Druvanitir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hey, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hey, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava Rakshamam, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava Paimam, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava Rakshamam, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava Parimam, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna, hey, Hare Krishna. Okay, so, well, I relate to this as a quintessential be, do, have verse. So our being, we're not. Walking here from Joppa, I saw in Brielle's car, it said we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So I thought, let's go right with that into class today. So, yes, there was a sticker right there from Teilhard de Chardin. Okay. So we're spiritual beings. That's our being. Speak of be, do, have. Actually, I've seen places where they try to go into be, do, have without the being, and then, yeah, I've shared with some. I mean, in 2009, I was conducting a foundational seminar in Toronto. Oh no, actually, it was Peterborough, Peterborough, outside of Toronto, Canada. Yeah, right there in Ontario. And then in the chorus, there were two just very bright, young, bright people. They were both PhDs, married couple, and they teach conflict resolution. They teach personal growth, and they teach, like, they were going into Serbia, a lot of war-torn places around the world, and conflict like that. And they were in the course, and then we were at the end of the course, and we were going to be, do, have. And I presented with regards to the modes of nature and how we're that irreducible quantum consciousness, spiritual beings. And yeah, and then after, 15-minute presentation, they were just sitting there and they looked rather stunned. And then the fellow, I would say they were both about 30 years old, something like that. And the fellow, and then he said, well, David, we've heard many presentations of Be Do Have the past 15 years. Then we teach Be Do Have. We teach Be Do Have. And right now I'm realizing that I never understood it. I'm realizing I never understood it. And okay. And then the woman, his wife, she said, I'm realizing that this cannot be understood unless we get the spiritual roots of Be Do Have. So that was very confirmational for me. Again, they were teaching this all around the world for mavens and transformation, things like that. So, okay, so Jivara Srupahai Krishnara Nichida. So we're eternal spirit souls, we're servant of Krishna. That's our being. Sometimes we say there's being and there's doing. They're different. At the same time, they're one. As soon as there's being, there's doing. Right? You can't really have being without doing. They're different. To see being and doing is different is really just help us conceive. But as soon as there's being, there's doing. They can't really be separate. And the doing is service. And the doing, and when we're realizing our being, and we're not in some dream world thinking that we are dead matter, when we realize our being, then the being is doing devotional service to God, to Krishna. And Krishna era tatasta shakti beta beta prakash. That's it. Achintya beta beta tattva. In a sense, we're Krishna. Everything is Krishna, and at the same time, so this is, Prabhupada makes the point. In a sense, we can say we are all gods. God means controller. God means controller, right? So we all control something. Okay, we all control something, maybe a household, something. Okay, but then Prabhupada emphasizes, yeah, but I don't use the word God. He generally uses the word Godhead. So like head means the chief. So who's the chief of all the gods? Who's the chief of all the controllers? We're all Ishvaras, controller in some respects, but who's the chief of all the Ishvaras? The Parameshvar. That's Krishna. Yeah, he's the head of all the gods. Okay. And even in terms of Vishnu Tattva, it's described, Parcha Evita Santarma, Pupecha, Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samana Dharma, Yasta Jagevita Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govinda Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. That, like, even in terms of Vishnu, because even the Jiva Tattvas were gods in some sort, the demigods have some control. I'm a god, like I control my computer. But even that's not happening.
Not much, yeah.
Not much, yeah. So that's why we're here today. Right? So, but in some small, like the ant controls the grain of sugar. Okay, I got my grain of sugar, but the ant's thinking I am the supreme God. Right. So Ishvaraham Bhagavad Siddhaham Balavan Sukhi. So that's I'm the God. I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer. So this whole Bhakti Yoga Krishna consciousness is transforming our consciousness to, okay, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, supreme controller. Remember the late great Dravanaksha Prabhu, he would describe, he shared personally with me his coming to Krishna story. And whatever, he had his life before coming to Prabhupada, like that. And then, and yeah, but he saw Krishna book, and it was like, and he saw Prabhupada was again and again describing God as the supreme enjoyer, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and he looked at Krishna's pastimes and like that, and he goes like, yeah, that's it, that's it. Because again, God, the old man in the sky, suffering from arthritis, that whole thing. And then you say, oh, but yeah, I want to enjoy, and I'm really frustrated. And all my friends want to enjoy, and they're frustrated again and again. So God is a supreme enjoyer, and the Vrindavan pastime, that works for me. So, yes. So Godhead, the head, the chief of all the gods. And so that's Krishna. So the departure Santarma Bhupetya. So just like Rama, Varahadev, Nrsingadev, there's so many Vishnu Tattva expansions, and they, in one sense, they're all the full light of Krishna. Still, Krishna is the original. There could be so many candles, but there's one original candle that lights all the other candles. It's described in the Bhagavatam. Ete Chamsakala Pumsa, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svaya. Krishna's tu Bhagavan, so Krishna is the source of all avatars. Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So that's the nature of the self. That's the nature of the self. That's our happiness. That's our bliss. That we surrender. It's not anything external. Really, we surrender to the soul of the soul, and then the result is opulence, victory, extraordinary power, morality. We can I can say that when I have some, like I say, yeah, and like when I'm not Krishna conscious, then, but that would indicate like almost all the time I'm Krishna conscious. But there's a few moments here and there. I saw actually Yogeshwar Joshua Green, because we have our Yogeshwar in this community, Czech Republic. Actually, I don't think he would mind. Actually, during the first time he took the advanced, he quoted this verse. He only came to Krishna consciousness like a few weeks earlier, but he was already memorizing verses. He has that propensity. So during his first stretch, I'm trusting he won't regard that as a violation of his confidentiality, because it was blissful and everyone was into this verse. And so, so Yogeshwar Joshua Green, who he wrote a biography of Srila Prabhupada, but I saw a video of him, and he was saying that there was like a morning walk or something, and like one of the disciples said, like one of the disciples used the term, like Prabhupada, when we fall into Maya, and Prabhupada said, you're always in Maya. Once in a while, you might fall into Krishna. Like by some chance, merciful accident, I fell into Krishna for 10 minutes. Oh my God. So Prabhupada said, you're always in Maya. You might fall into Krishna once in a while. So just for perspective. Yes, that, so when we're taking shelter there, then I do experience in those moments when maybe I'm reading Prabhupada, then I experience power. I experience all those principles that we're facilitating about. We do have fearlessness. Yeah, and then in those, vast majority of times when I'm not Krishna conscious or near Krishna conscious, then I'm in this anxiety. So this isn't just theory. Okay. So, power, opulence. We can think of opulence like how much money do you have in the bank? How many cars do you own? We can think of it that way. But even in terms of mundane personal growth, that's a very superfluous understanding. Right? Even in terms of mundane superfluous growth, what to speak of the spiritual basis, we get, and we say this like every time we present Be Do Have, we get that someone could have $1 billion and completely be in scarcity consciousness, anxiety, survival mode, and like the idea is my sense of worth and value and being lovable and powerful is dependent on not losing this money and like that. and someone can have no pennies to their name, can have nothing to their name, absolutely nothing to their name, and they're completely opulent, they're completely abundant, like that. It is said, rich is not who has the most, rich is who needs the least, not who has the most, who needs the least. So opulence, it's not a mental concoction. It's a way of being. It's a way of being, right? Like who could, like, okay, so like when Prabhupada came to the West, even when Prabhupada, you know, as the years went on in the West, and he had like empires, multi-million-dollar, this and that, and there was nothing in his name, nothing in his name. So Prabhupada was always fully opulent, whether there were so many buildings in the organization or when he was on the Jaladuta. So this is, yeah, abundance is a consciousness. It's not about a number in a bank account. And Prabhupada describes extensively about morality in the purport. Morality, yeah. And the idea is like, okay, we're Krishna conscious, morality is automatically there. Just, we're yatatur mulani shechane. We water the root of the tree, and then it's just like, is that moral? Then all the twigs, all the leaves, all the branches are served in the most nurturing, wonderful way. Sometimes, yeah, I recall this when I first programs I were coming to in State College, Pennsylvania, then I remember in Israel, like that. And there would commonly be people, I never resonated so much with, but commonly, oh, this is about war. And Krishna is encouraging war, so that's immoral. And Prabhupada addresses that here. Again, even in terms of mundane morality, yes, there are certainly moral limits to war, and anyone who thinks a little knows, even in ordinary dealings, there are moral limits to peace. No, peace is always moral. Well, what if in the name of peace, in the name of choosing peace, then 10 million more people die because of violence, because the government's choosing peace in the name of morality? We can all think of scenarios if we just think a little bit. Okay, so this was actually the case here, even if we remove the analysis of Krishna's transcendental position, and like everyone who died on the battlefield got liberation, that, yes, that the Pandavas so humbly and with determination, and over years and years, they were just endeavoring for some peaceful agreement, and the other side was quite vicious and not willing for any fairness. At one point, Duryodhana said, Krishna asked them, okay, you can rule the world, just let the Pandavas have 5 villages. 5 villages. And Duryodhana said, they will not get the amount of land that can fit underneath the head of a pin. Okay, so there were all reasonable attempts for peace. Arjuna, all the Pandavas, well, I'll say at least Arjuna and Yudhishthira. I'm not sure about Bhima, but Nakul and so Arjuna, Yudhishthira, Nakul and Sahadev, at least, they really had a Vaishnava heart, and they would not want to fight. It's their nature to be kshatriyas, but their preference would always be peace, like that. And we can see that. So it's like, and that's there at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. It's Arjuna's quality. He had this compassionate heart. In this case, it was also sentimental because it was like neglecting his duty. But so Prabhupada critiques Arjuna, but he also praises him with love. This is the soft heart of a Vaishnava. Doesn't want conflict, doesn't want to fight. Still, if that's my dharmic or transcendental duty, we're ready for battle. And we could see that in Srila Prabhupada. He was always ready for battle on behalf of Krishna, on behalf of Krishna. And so, yes, so this is a special day to move closer to making Krishna the most important person in our life. Okay. We might know that theoretically, okay, Krishna's God, like that. And then, so for a realized devotee, every day, yeah, because it's Krishna's birthday. Again, we use that term birthday. It's not technical philosophical meaning. So just like someone's birthday, this person's special. Let's celebrate their birthday. Let's celebrate their birthday. And I mean, we thought Krishna's the most important person. Well, no, I don't even know if Krishna exists. You know, we have so many things going on. And as we practice this process of bhakti yoga, then more and more putting Krishna in the center, glorifying Krishna, sharing with Krishna about others, Krishna and his devotees and his pastimes, his form. Here we have his whole pastime with Arjuna, Krishna's philosophy, Krishna's form. It's described Chintamani Prakara Satmasu Kalpa Vriksha Lakshana Viteshu Surabhirabhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Saptasam Brahma Sejamanam Govindamadi Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. So many verses to help us awaken the natural Krishna consciousness in our heart. Nityasiddha Krishna Prabhunoy Shravanadi Shuddhachita Karye Udai. Love of Krishna, that this is the Bijuha. The love of Krishna is eternally situated in the core of the being, in the core of the hearts of all living entities, and it's awakened by this process of hearing and chanting. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows and abodes built of spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees and served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or gopis. So many verses to help us remember that most important person for us as spirit souls, for us as spirit souls. So I mean, you know, we could say Srila Prabhupada's our most important person because he's our link to Krishna. But we'll probably emphasize that tomorrow. So for today, we're more focusing on Krishna as the most important person. And yes, that, you know, it's like, it's natural for us to not want to die. We resist death. We resist disease. We resist the effects of old age, like that. Because the soul's nature is to be eternally blissfully engaged in pastimes with Krishna. To be eternally blissfully engaged in pastimes with Krishna. That's our nature. That's our nature. And we're trying to get that eternal bliss through manipulating the material energy. And that's at best chasing the carrot on the stick, or it's drinking Hari Hari Bipale Janama Gunaina Manusha Janma Paya Radhakrishna Nam Bajya Shunya Janya Bisha Kainu. Okay, so the Vaishnava poet says, yeah, I have this human birth. As a spiritual, I have this human birth, and I've not used it to worship Radha and Krishna. It's like I'm knowingly drinking poison. I'm knowingly drinking poison. So that's, yeah. So to develop that relationship with Krishna, loving relationship. When we say, well, loving, what's that mean, loving? I mean, I'm far from loving. So we're practicing. And so Prabhupada gave us Janmashtami. Celebrate Janmashtami. He wants us to celebrate Janmashtami as like, it's like a special structure to to practice absorbing ourselves in Krishna consciousness, through hearing, through chanting, through preparing food for Krishna, and through hearing his pastimes. And then, to the extent that we surrender, it's surrender to Krishna, but it's really surrender to ourselves. It's surrender to the soul of our soul. It's nothing external. Surrendering to the core of our very being. Anything else is a struggle. We said that the online course on Sunday, Mel came out with, life is difficult, life is a struggle, life is one disturbance after the next. No, it's 100 disturbances after the next. It's not like at one time there's one disturbance. We got so that could sound depressing, of course, but so I shared that, yeah, I'm struggling, and you're struggling, and everyone's struggling, and everyone I've ever encountered is struggling. And so the question is, what's a worthwhile struggle? What's a worthwhile struggle? Because the idea is, I'll fix this, and I'll change that, and she'll be different, and then he'll be different, and then I'll fix my health, and then as soon as the pandemic's finished, no more struggle. Wrong. So it's the nature. It's the nature of material nature to be disturbed and struggle. F. Scott Peck starts his famous book, The Road Less Traveled, with life is difficult. And he goes, once we accept that life is difficult, it no longer matters, right? Because then we're no longer dependent for our sense of happiness, fulfillment, peace on fixing the material context. Then we accept the material context, we relate to it in a way that is purposeful, that is supportive. F. Scott Peck, he himself, what he's essentially saying is, we relate to it to cultivate our eternal God consciousness. So we can just be more specific about that, to cultivate our eternal Krishna consciousness and get out of the samsara, get out of the cycle of birth and death. And Prabhupada gives the example, like a big elephant or a big man-made ship can be in the midst of the ocean and the waves, and a big strong elephant will just be destroyed by the waves. But there can be a little fish that doesn't have a trillionth of the power of the elephant. A little fish can be in the water, swimming against the current, and just doing swimmingly, just doing great, doing wonderful. Okay, there could be a 100-foot wave, and a little bit, and Prabhupada says, because the fish has a relationship with the water. The fish is taking shelter. The fish is taking shelter. The fish knows how to take shelter in the water. So it can be in the midst of that. So similarly, whatever strength we have materially, whether it's physical strength or money in the bank or education or whatever, the waves of material nature will just smash us. We'll just be smashed. Just like an elephant or a man-made ship will just be smashed by the waves in the ocean. And if we take shelter of Krishna through, if not loving, at least committed, dedicated devotional service, then even the waves of Krishna's material energy, the tidal waves of material energy, we swim and we flow. We know how to respond to those waves in a way that increases our enthusiasm to make Krishna, because whether we recognize it or not, Krishna is the most important person of our life. I can deny it, I can go the next 200 million lifetimes ignoring it. Still, that's the fact of being. So consciously surrendering with enthusiasm to serve that supreme enjoyer and that supreme controller, and then we transform matter into spirit. Yatra Yogeshvara Krishno Yatra Parto Danurdara Tapcha Shri Jayo Bhutir Dhruva Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Hare Krishna, thanks for your attention and presence. I welcome at this time if anyone would like to share any comments or ask any questions. Eze.
Hi Krishna. I really like the analogy with the elephant and the fish. I haven't
Okay.
heard that one yet. So I really like it. Somewhere near the end of the purport, it's saying that there's two categories of living entities: eternally liberated and eternally conditioned. How do I make sense of that in a way that leads to a different conclusion than, well, if I'm eternally conditioned, then what's the point? What's the point of all this? I'm eternally conditioned and just screw it all with
This is pointless, yeah.
yeah.
Why even try
So
for spiritual
what
life?
What does that mean? We talk so much about living entities. They can become liberated. They can go to Vaikuntha, blah blah blah. So how does that happen if they're
Yes,
eternally conditioned?
thanks for that. And Prabhupada does address that, not here, but in other places. Yeah, to eternally conditioned, eternally liberated. So, yeah, so what you said at the end, that is true, and that's where to focus. Yeah, we can become completely liberated even while within this body, and go back to Godhead, and we don't need to stay in the material world. We can bring an end to it in this lifetime, even in this moment. That could be theoretical, but certainly this lifetime. Yeah. So eternally, when it's eternally conditioned, the Sanskrit is nitya badha. And what Prabhupada's referring to there, and he's representing the acharyas, previous acharyas, is like that there's no point in time when we can trace when the living entity who's currently conditioned was not conditioned. So just like, and we discussed this a few weeks ago, like sometimes the demigods are called Amara, which means immortal, and just means like if demigods, even if they're living a few hundreds of millions of years, and some demigods live more than that, billions of years. Some demigods, Brahma, goes into hundreds of trillions. Compared to, it's a way of speech, you might say. Compared to the 60, 80, 100 years of a human life, it's practically immortal. It's like if whatever the few seconds of a life from amoeba, so the 100 years of a human life would be practically forever. So it's a way of speaking. But the demigods, they eventually die too, even Brahma. So eternally conditioned means there's no point in time in the past where we can identify there was a time when we were not conditioned. But it doesn't mean that we cannot get out of material nature. Neither does it mean that we were never with Krishna in the spiritual world. It's talking about in regards to, because like a lifetime of Brahma, it's the 311 trillion years. And perhaps the conditioned souls, many, if not most of them, are in conditioned life, perhaps for hundreds of trillions of lifetimes of Brahma. So practically speaking, we can say it's like since time immemorial, since the time before we can even calculate. And it doesn't mean that we cannot liberate ourselves. It doesn't mean we're hopelessly doomed to being forgetful of our original position.
You said there's no point in the past that we could find where we weren't conditioned. Like my previous understanding was that we were with Krishna at some point, and then we decided to come down here.
Yeah.
So then, how do these two make sense together? That there's no point in time ever that we weren't conditioned.
So that time when we're with Krishna, that's beyond time. So that's not within the calculation. That's a timeless space. So even if we're with Krishna, we're in Vaikuntha, or even the Brahmagyoti. Okay, then let's say we bloop into the material realm, and we're here for hundreds of trillions of lifetimes of Brahma, an inconceivable number. And then we go back. We decided, yeah, let me give myself pure devotional service. We can imagine that, let's say, for Krishna and his associates there, it might be like, oh, you kind of spaced out for a moment. Yeah, you kind of spaced out for a moment. Yeah, something. Yeah, whatever. Okay, let's have some glovduments. Okay, so that whole realm, that's beyond the realm of material time. So even to go, yeah, but what if it's so long? It's that whole realm. Each moment. That's why there's no past or future. Each moment exists forever. Even I've heard, maybe even you sent me this, some Christian preacher was quite intelligent, and he was in some debate, but someone asked him about time, and then he quoted the first verse of the Bible. You see, if you sent it to me, it was you, I think you said. So there you go. I think that nicely relates. I'm not saying answered, but relates. So you sent that three categories of three. So that first line in the Bible, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So he indicates that means the creator, right? It's like the creator of the computer is not in the computer. The creator is beyond heaven, beyond earth, and beyond time itself. So associating with Krishna, then we're beyond time too. And that's just like even we, in a seminar, or maybe a Janmashtami festival, or Bhagavatam discussion, we have timeless, we experience timeless space. Because it's true, the more the soul comes to sattvic consciousness, transcendental consciousness, then we're no longer influenced by material time. Thanks for your question. Thank you, Esli.
It's an interesting thing. You don't need to tell me.
Can you speak loud enough?
It's an interesting thing to say eternally conditioned, because time is conspicuous by its absence in a non-conditioned state.
Yes.
In a liberated state, there is no time.
Yeah.
So eternally conditioned doesn't, it doesn't go together.
In a sense, yeah.
Because the quality of the conditioned life is under the energy of time.
Yes.
So if it's under the energy of time, there's not such a thing as eternity.
Yeah, you're
It's
saying.
interesting to put those two words together, eternally conditioned, and because it doesn't mean eternally.
Right. Okay.
Because it's not, condition cannot be eternal, because it's under the direction of time.
It would seem like a contradiction in terms.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, but then we look into what it really means, and then we can begin to conceive. Thanks for that, Molly.
I remember Prabhupada also says from time immemorial.
From time immemorial, yeah.
We don't remember. And I always had that question, like, okay, if it's not actually eternally conditioned, just for a very long time, why is that? Why Prabhupada makes that like harsh contrast? Like, what kind of impression wants to be on us by you saying that they're eternally liberated, eternally conditioned? Like, in the beginning I thought, well, maybe it's like the Christians that they say you go to hell forever. I don't know.
Oh, is it the harsh contrast between terms? Okay. I'm not claiming to know. I mean, maybe some conjecture, which I think is what Prabhupada would consider permissible speculation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that, okay, one thing, okay, like if we talk about like the pure devotees who are avatars, like Prabhupada, like Jesus, Bhaktisiddhanta, and even though they appear here, they are like Krishna, they're beyond time. So Prabhupada wants us to get that we don't want to compare ourselves to them. We don't want to make the mistake of thinking they are influenced by the material energy. No, they're the example often given is like there's prisoners in the prison, so they're nityabada, okay? They're conditioned in the prison. Then the warden might decide to visit, or the governor or the president could visit the prison. Maybe even when the warden president says, okay, I'm gonna do exercise with you today. I'll take lunch with you in the prison cafeteria. I mean, the warden or the governor could do that to show mercy, okay? But then if the prisoners that all think, yeah, you're just like one of us, or like that. Yeah, no, there's a stark contrast. The warden or governor is visiting for 4 hours, and he or she can leave whenever they want. They are not bound. They're there on a mercy mission. So I think Prabhupada really wants us to understand the difference between us conditioned souls and to be conscious how we're relating to the pure devotees.
And
Thanks.
not to become over familiar with it.
Yeah, not to become over familiar. Thanks for that. S.D. Canary, Rukmini Devidasi says, also it is said, since time without beginning. Yes, Prabhupada used time immemorial, time without beginning. Thanks for that.
May I ask something further about that? Maybe.
Let's see, well, yes, so let's was there someone on internet who had a comment or question? Dr. George.
Hare Krishna, David. It's not so much related to the time, but I'll go there since I feel inspired. I really connected with the paradigm shift of being in Maya and falling into Krishna. I'm going to take that with me very much from today.
Okay.
This process of bhakti yoga increasingly feels like it's like the challenge of accepting surrender. It's like the challenge of accepting surrender, and being conditioned my whole life, and just being in this world where everyone wants to eat each other. It's to surrender your existence, your everything to another entity. It was like so challenging. And I was reading in my personal reading this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. I think it's 1:622, and at the end, I think Narada is saying to Vyasadeva that if we're searching for sincere service, to the devotee who's searching for sincere service, the Lord will let them know how and where to render that service. And that stuck with me for a while, because to the degree that I'm surrendered, I'm going to know how and where to render that service, so I really appreciate that idea of like, that is the biggest challenge, at least on a personal level for me, is accepting that challenge of surrendering to Krishna. And I really like that statement of falling into him.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll stick with you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your sharing, Dr. George. There's a lot there, a lot there. Yeah, this whole thing, surrender. We're here to not surrender. We're here in material consciousness because we're dedicated to not surrender. I mean, I might surrender if I can get something from you. If I surrender from you, and you can teach me how to make $1 million. If I can surrender to you, then I can get this, I can get that. So, but it's a business exchange surrender. But to actually surrender to the Supreme Person, that we're material existence means we came here and our whole agenda is to not surrender to God. So yeah, it's easy. It's simple, and it's tends to be really, really difficult for the conditioned soul. And yeah, and then that principle, and then to the, because we talk about grungies, like grungy of confusion or like that. And like there's healthy period of uncertainty and then grungy. But that's it. Like if, like to the extent that the soul is surrendered, then Krishna gives intelligence from within. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, there are 4 seed verses. And the last 2 seed verses, Krishna deals just with that. Tisham satata yuktanam, bhajatam pratipurvakam, tatami buddhi yogam tam, yenamam upayanti te, to one who is sincere in surrendering to me and serving me, I give the intelligence to know what service to do and how to come to me. Tisham evanu kampartam aham gyanajam tamaha, nashayam yatma bhavasto, Ganatipena Basvata. Krishna says, I, dwelling within their hearts, destroy with the lamp of ignorance, the lamp of knowledge, the ignorance, the darkness born of ignorance. Yeah, I, dwelling within their hearts, destroy with the lamp of knowledge, the darkness born of ignorance. So I know we say sometimes in our coach training, that all the coaching methods, principles, techniques, it's all meant to support the client or the person or the family member, whatever, or ourselves. It's all meant to support someone, challenge someone to connect with the highest guidance within. And that means Krishna within the heart. And everyone has that highest guidance within by whatever name. Thanks for your sharing, Bhakti George.
Hare Krishna.
Ramachandra?
Yeah, it's not my question, but Brielle asked that a few days ago. And it's about this Nitya Bandha and Nitya Siddha aspect. And I'm wondering about like the eternally liberated personalities. Does it necessarily mean that they never took birth before their like present appearance? Or like, for example, because I heard about Prabhupada that he recalls going to an astrologer and saying that, and speaking about his previous birth as a physician, and he was seamless. And then when I narrated that to Brielle, she asked me, but isn't he supposed to be Nitya Siddha? And I was questioning again, like, doesn't mean that Nitya Siddha never takes birth here again, only for his purposeful incarnation as Acharya or...
Yeah, and we have, like Narada Muni was the, he was the son of a Sudrani woman and like that. And, well, okay, so like, if a spirit soul becomes a pure devotee, either through Kripa Siddha, the mercy of the spiritual master, or Sadhana Siddha, or Nitya Siddha, then in one sense, we don't question, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where they came from. That's one principle as far as psychology. And then, as far as Prabhupada, yeah, he mentions that story about this, like about the astrologer. I don't know what that means. It could certainly mean, for me, it makes sense that clearly Prabhupada has a relationship with Krishna where he's coming into the dark places and shining Krishna's light of knowledge. So maybe 1896 wasn't the first time that he came on some mission. There's no reason to think it was the first time. Maybe it was on this planet, maybe a different planet, like that. Those are some thoughts.
Satisfies me.
Isn't it that Prabhupada's mission is eternal also? Goes on in eternally in a universe? Like Krishna's pastime?
Krishna's pastime, yeah. Well, Prabhupada's mission is non-different from Krishna's mission, Lord Chaitanya's mission, so it's eternal. It's eternal. But perhaps the particular form of a movement, might have a beginning and end, but the mission is eternal.
Yeah, and also for that, what comes to mind in responding to Ramachandra is Krishna's parents.
Yes.
They are pure devotees, they have more than one life.
Yes.
We come back and again and again and again and again to get Krishna's parents. Krishna's parents. Vishnugava and
Sutapa,
yeah,
and then we were Kashyapa and Aditi. There was even Kashyapa had quite some pastimes like that. So which could appear material like with DT and things like that. Yeah.
So they are eternal associate of the Lord.
Yes.
They are eternally liberated. Still, we can see the trajectory of their different so-called births in the material world.
Thank you for answering this.
They don't become conditioned when they come here by the material nature.
Right. That's my understanding.
But at the same time, we're saying that anyone can become, like all jivas can fall into Maya,
Yes.
and then all jivas can get out of Maya,
For
Yes.
into Krishna.
can fall into Krishna. Yeah, so it's an interesting, like, blurry. It's interesting to make it into a duality of like Nityabhata and
Yeah, and my sense is, I think Prabhupada's doing that. I feel confident he's following the line of acharyas to kind of help us conceive things in a particular way, to support us. Yeah.
Isn't it everything is like that? Spiritual world, material world. It's not such a thing. There's only the spiritual world.
Right.
And our division or so-called duality are there to help us, like the Brahma dividing the Vedas into 4, and so many things like that in the teaching is make us empathize, meeting us where we are at.
To help us,
like
us.
the teaching of mathematics.
Yeah.
Like there is so many things that sounds false even that's taught in primary school in terms of mathematics. But that's not false. It's just meeting the children where they are at.
To help us spiritual children make distinctions that are helpful for us.
Yeah.
Like for mathematics, right? The teacher might teach at a certain level. Okay, so you can subtract a small number from a bigger number, but you can't subtract a bigger number from a smaller number. Because for maybe the 7-year-old, if you say, here's something called negative numbers, they'll never get anything. But then later, maybe in 4th grade, okay, now here we're going to subtract a bigger number from a smaller number.
It's more absolute, so it's deduction.
You said you can't do that. Yeah, well, okay. It's not like we lied to you because we hate you or something, but like that.
yeah, it seems so much from my perspective like how important humility is.
Humility.
So much of those dualities seem to meet us where we're at in my arrogance and my ego, and to also develop trust for something beyond my faults and my ego. Believing in that there's untainted source of knowledge that's crucial.
Yeah, that's humility. Jiva Goswami says, the first quality to be eligible to begin to understand God is to accept that God's inconceivable, to humbly accept beyond my mundane mind and intellect. And then that can move us to some humble surrender, and then our heart's open to receive transcendental divya gyan. Thanks for that, Nare.
Yes, so the acharyas, they have a very hard job. They are supposed to come here to help us understand something that's inconceivable. So they have to meet us where we are at.
Yes.
I like what you said when you were reading this morning from the 10th canto was something like, by receiving transcendental knowledge, we get to understand Krishna or something like that.
Yeah.
But like, it's transcendental knowledge, it's not even like a material knowledge, or duality knowledge. But that knowledge of duality, like Nitya Bhada, Nitya Siddha, is necessary for us to grab from where we are at with our mind.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Like yesterday I was listening to a class going to Gansila, Prabhupada said, we're always serving Krishna.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many classes that we need to serve Krishna. Why don't you serve Krishna? Serve Krishna now. But the reality is that we are always serving Krishna. There is no one moment in any of our days, in any of our life, where we don't serve Krishna. The difference he was making is that we can serve Krishna voluntarily or involuntarily, but we're always serving Krishna. We're always on purpose with the universe. There's no moment where we are not. But those distinctions are useful. Because if the teaching was always that, we're always serving, then let me do whatever I do. But then no, it's meditate on serving Krishna, pray to serve Krishna.
Serving doesn't mean we're pleasing. Just like, like we have free will limitedly within, just like in terms of, say, the state government. We have free will within a context. It's not absolute. We have free will within the context of the laws, right? And then if we misuse our free will, then we're in the prison. Now in the prison, we're still serving the government. We're serving within a particular system, and they might have us smashing rocks or whatever they have us do in prison, like that. And so similarly, we have free will, but it's not absolute. Krishna's free will is Svarat, it's absolute. So we're yaya tamam prapadyate tam tateva bjamiham mamavat manavatante manisha partasarvasha. Krishna says everyone's following my path. It could be material energy, it could be yoga, it could be mental speculation, it could be nonsense, but it's all within the government created by Krishna. So and everyone's following Krishna's path. And that doesn't mean that anything we do is equally pleasing to Krishna. Mm-hmm. Whatever we do is within some system that Krishna set up. Maybe it's the prison system, maybe it's the university system. Just like there are some things we can do that pleases the government more, like if we follow the laws like that, pay our taxes, like that. So, so as you're emphasizing, Malini, what Prabhupada says, okay, so let's consciously use our minute independence to serve in a way that's pleasing to Krishna and his devotees. We do that, and then we get that transcendental knowledge. There's a verse in 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Janati Purushottamam, it's the verse where Krishna says, one who knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be understood as the knower of everything, and such a person naturally engages in my service. So so this Janmashtami, it's a chance for extra hearing and chanting, more hearing the pastimes of Krishna, and then there's a common saying, to know him is to love him. So the more we hear about Krishna, the more our affection, our love for Krishna awakens, and the more we want to serve, the more knowledge we get. This is the transcendental eternal reciprocation between Krishna and the spirit soul. Shri Krishna Janmashtami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Krishna ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Can I ask another question?
I was going to say, Dr. Patrick, I know you're on my way to my home. We're planning to leave here in a few minutes, and we'll see you there. And Patrick will be leading the festival.
It's Japa now.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Japa until 11, I think.
Okay. Hare Krishna. We'll be there pretty soon. For me, it's fine if you want to continue discussion.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that we've been all with Krishna before. And I mean, I just heard from other devotional camps that some of us actually came from the Brahmajyoti, or actually like everyone who is in the material, everyone who is a Nitya Bandha, the meaning of that is that Nitya Bandha means that we eternally conditioned, because actually we never had the experience of being with Krishna, and we were generated from the Brahmajyoti. And I don't think I ever raised a question in like the community here. I wanted to hear like, your opinion about that.
Well, I would say to say that all of the innumerable spirit souls within the material realm, material conditioned life, that none of them were ever with Krishna in pastime. To say that, to me, that would seem inconsistent with many of Prabhupada's teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying, I know that all the conditioned souls were in Goloka Vrindavan with Krishna? I don't know that. To say that none of the conditioned souls were ever in Vaikuntha, Goloka Vrindavan, I could give you 80 or 90 pages of Prabhupada's quotes that would seem to contradict that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I can say.
But would you agree that like some maybe never had that experience? Like, is it even like to what extent it's okay to say that Nitya Bandhas never had? Some Nitya Bandhas were generated from Brahmajyoti, or like are there souls which are generated from Brahmajyoti at all, or?
Well, I just based on my understanding of Prabhupada's teachings, that and I don't know. It's like maybe when he's in a conversation or a purport, maybe he's not speaking about all spirit souls sometimes. So I'm who am I to say no spirit soul? But Prabhupada says like, yeah, they might be generated by Brahmagyoti, and Krishna is the source of the Brahmagyoti. So like I get the understanding that yeah, their path to the material conditioned life could be through the Brahmagyoti. There's a purport in the 9th canto, very, very clear. Prabhupada said that the spirit souls, they started as a Brahma in the material universe. Now, does he mean all of the unlimited quadrillions of spirit souls that ever got conditioned started as Brahma? Maybe he means that. I don't know, I'm not saying. But that purport is there. So for me, that here's a permissible conjecture for at least some spirit souls. I'm not saying all necessarily, but at least some. That, okay, so maybe spirit souls serving Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, or serving like that. Okay. And then the idea is I want to serve. Maybe there's some propensity to serve by being a Brahma. Now you could like that's not fallen, because like Brahma is like a Shakti Vesha avatar, pure devotee, managing the material universe to bring spirit souls back to Krishna. Shakti Vesha avatar. So that's why we could use the language, one has not fallen. It's a little complicated because some Brahmas are clearly influenced by material nature. Some Brahmas are Jnana Bhakti, some Brahmas are Karma Bhaktis, some Brahmas are pure devotees, a little complicated. But let's say even a Brahma who's a pure devotee. Okay. So we could say, oh, they haven't fallen. But there are, now they're serving Krishna, in a material capacity. And again, Prabhupada said, this isn't like an offhand comment in a conversation. This is a purport in the 9th canto, that the living entity started as Brahma. So then maybe as Brahma, then they do their service, and then back to Goloka Vrindavan. But maybe some percentage of Brahmas, they just have like maybe some tinge. The free will is just like, wow, heavenly planets. Let me just do one lifetime as a heavenly planet, like that. And then maybe the slide begins. So maybe the fall actually begins from the position of Brahma. Okay, so it could be said for such spirit souls, they didn't fall from the spiritual world. They fell from the position of Brahma. They co-created with Krishna consciously to come to the position of Brahma. So it could be said they haven't fallen from the spiritual world. They fell from the position of Brahma. And they came to the position of Brahma in pure devotional service to Krishna. So that's one scenario that for me makes sense and connects the dots of the different language we hear sometimes from Prabhupada.
Yeah, I remember in the 6th mantra of the Ishapanisha, the last paragraph it says, sound that we generated from the Brahma something. Yeah, but what triggered me when I heard that even some were generated from the Brahma Jyoti is that it sounded to me like some were forced to go to Maya, and it's hard for me to believe that. It sounds like a victim-y like position of that some were just forced to go to Maya and they never had like,
that's just forced to go to Maya. That's just completely against Prabhupada's teachings. Prabhupada would say like Krishna is imploring us not to go to Maya, but we just insist, and so like that.
That's my interpretation of that. I see that as victim-y. Because as soon as anyone who is in a Brahma Jyoti, my understanding is that anyone who is a Brahma Jyoti, sooner or later is going to fall down.
Not automatically, because for example, Shukadeva Goswami was Brahma Jyoti realized. Shukadeva, for Kumaras, the Jayantayas. But generally speaking, we hear Aruya Krichena Pram Padam Tatapatanti. Generally speaking, many who are Brahma Jyoti realize if they don't have a taste for serving Krishna, then they come back to material realm. But that's not absolute, that's general.
Yeah. Like you would say that some can just stay there forever.
No, not forever. They're going to go to either spiritual planet or material planet.
Oh.
They won't stay there, forever.
So it is possible theoretically that someone is generated from the Brahma Jyoti in the spiritual world and he will elevate himself from the Brahma Jyoti state to the spiritual world without going to Maya.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what you were saying about the Brahmas, I want to look at that purport. What did you say it was? 9?
Ninth canto. I have it at home. I mean, I have it on my computer.
Yeah, if you could send that.
Yeah, and if you don't get it from me within 24 hours, send me an email, and
I would like to get it too.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, because there's like in like the 3rd canto or something where he says the conclusion is that no one falls from Vaikuntha because it's the eternal.
Yes.
And so like what you're saying makes sense, that no one would fall, they could choose.
Yeah.
Like that conjecture makes sense. And then like in regards to the Nityasiddha, Nityavada thing, like then it's like, well then what you're saying to me, my conjecture is that well then Srila Prabhupada is not infallible, and Srila Prabhupada could, just like that Brahma that came as a Shakti Avatar to serve Krishna, could also become influenced by the modes. So then like, yeah, what?
Well, my understanding, I wouldn't use the term is not infallible, but I would use the term that, yeah, the pure devotee acharyas, they can choose Maya. Yeah.
The jiva.
Yeah, they never do. And that, for me, that's an encouraging point, not discouraging. Because for me, because sometimes you think, oh, okay, like, you did this, that, yeah, that's Prabhupada, he's a pure devotee, it's no big thing. I mean, sure, if I was a pure devotee, I could do that too. No big thing. And, oh yeah, some Rupa Goswami, sure. But they're pure devotees, so no, they've got choice at every moment. And they could choose the modes of nature. And they just, every moment, they choose Krishna. So it's never like, it's a pure devotee, it's not like they're a robot who can't choose Maya. They can.
But at the same time, what you're saying is like, but they have and will, like if there is such a thing as being a pure devotee and then choosing Maya, which is what you're saying, like is happening to that Brahma, then like that, then what I understand you're saying is that they can and will choose that.
I'm not saying they will. I'm saying they have independence, so they are ontologically capable. Just like anyone in this room, we could choose to get up right now and go to the stove, turn on the stove, and put our hand on the stove, the flame. We could choose that, but that would seem, well, that would be completely insane. No one here would do that. Well, and like even if we were here a million years, no one here is going to do that because we have knowledge, we have realization. Now that would be stupid. That would be just painful. But we could do it. And so for me, that's a good analogy. Because just like, that would be so painful and stupid. It would serve no good purpose, only bad purpose. So similarly for the pure devotees, even like a tinge of material sattva gun would be like worse than us going to the stove from our perception. So but ontologically, we could choose that.
Right, but what I'm saying is like, if for a pure devotee, if for a liberated jiva, that's just wanting to serve Krishna. If it's so obviously ridiculous to choose Maya, why would any of them ever do that?
Yeah, well, I think we can console ourselves. You know, we can console ourselves. Like, I have experience of the freedom and bliss of Krishna consciousness. So why do I choose? Why do I keep choosing every day to go to the stove and put my hand on the fire? It doesn't make sense. It's not rational. It's not like there's intrinsically there's not a rational response. Just like here in this morning program, these past few hours. Yeah, so I have the opportunity to do my whole day, my whole week. So why later in today will I choose to open the stove and put my hand there? So it's not a rational response, but that's it. It's free choice that's misused in a way that's unwise. You know, in a way that's full. Prabhupada emphasizes, that there's no meaning to free will if we don't have the choice to be stupid. If we don't have the choice, if we don't have the independence to do something that's we, meaning all jivas, including the acharyas, we have the independence to act really foolishly and stupidly. And Prabhupada said, otherwise, there's no meaning to independence. We have the independence to act foolishly.
I see that in a way like an extension of the achinta potency of Krishna, that our independence is too is like it's a fraction of the inconceivable independence that Krishna has. So we want that too. We want to be so independent in the spiritual world when we in Maya that I'm gonna go to Maya to be independent, which is inconceivably ridiculous. But I did that.
Maybe starting just to be a Brahman and serve Krishna. Maybe starting there and then like that. So, okay, I appreciate this discussion. I'll send the quotes I mentioned. Again, if you don't get it by tomorrow, write me and I'll send them. Cool. So let's go, because I know Patrick's planning to meet us at home. So let's do that.
I was thinking too that like for someone like an acharya or someone who is an nityasiddha to fall down, the process is so long for like compared to us that we will not even perceive that. Like most likely, not most likely. because he has to go back to the spiritual world basically and tell Krishna and ask Krishna to send him back here. And by the time we might be back home, back to God.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Prabhu's. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for coming.
You'll take the sign?
Okay.
Yeah. Good. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Thank you.
I'm gonna talk on Sunday or the last month. Sunday.
Yeah, you can get it.
I'll order
Before.
that.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, is this yours? Hello? Is this you?
This was less intentionally, right?
Yeah. What's somebody commenting on that?
Yeah, there's Rukmini saying, isn't there a difference between a pure devotee here potentially choosing the modes of nature, the jivas in the spiritual world, choosing it where there are no modes of nature? And now Ladini just joined. Hello, Ladini. Actually, the program is over, but it was never turned off.
I thought there will be always program today.
Oh, yes. I meant the morning program is over. They're going to start the festival soon. Dhira Govinda and Ramachandra and Keith just left. Oh, yes, thank you. Thanks for stopping. And